here at Crafty Hope, and welcome. As you can see, I'm about to work on the Seek, Gather, Create challenge for week 4. This is a mixed media scavenger hunt challenge that is hosted by 4 other artists: Lisa, Tina, Laura, and guest hostess Casey. I will have Instagram links for all of those amazing artists below, and I encourage you to check them out. There's also an Instagram Seek, Gather, Create account that I'll link also. But basically, for 4 weeks, twice a year, they host this challenge. So they do it in the winter and the summer. And each week they give 4 prompts in which you should go seek, gather, and create with, and then post that online on Instagram. They also have a giveaway and all that stuff. Like I said, check out their links. All that information is there. I'm going to start on this week 4 challenge, and the prompts are a window, the color green, something blurry, and a repeating shape. Now I'm going to try to go through this as fast as possible, but I'm still kind of working out ideas. I've really enjoyed my last 3 weeks, and I always feel when I get to week 4 that I have to top it somehow, and I'm feeling that pressure, so I'm nervous, or I don't know, uninspired, or just, yeah, this one's kind of, I'm starting on it a bit late, so it's got me holed up. So for a window, I almost immediately knew I wanted to laser cut some kind of window. So this is the shape that I kind of saw, this kind of arched window. I tried a couple, and I don't have them in here. I tried a couple other window shapes too, just to do something more traditional, and didn't really care for it. So I went to this one, and I really like it. So I'm going to use this as my window. For the color green, I have pulled out some Distress Oxide in Rustic Wilderness, some embroidery floss in this really nice, it almost completely matches that, in this, like, I don't know, olivey grassy green color. You can see it's on one of my little butterfly bobbins. I've got these in my Etsy shop if you're interested in getting a set of butterfly bobbins for your floss or thread or whatever. And then I also have a green button because I do love me some buttons. So I've got those green things, something blurry. I'm toying with the idea of blurring maybe the Distress Oxide, using the stamp and blurring the edges of it. I also could blur other ink. I've got a dollar store pen I really like that blurs beautifully. But also, let's see what else. I have an eco print here where the prints are kind of blurry. So there's my eco prints in there, and they're not great. They're kind of blurry. What else? I'm possibly going to use some alcohol ink on some acetate, maybe in one of my windows, and that'll be kind of blurry. But the main thing is I went and looked at blurry photos. I pulled out a bunch, kind of went through them, and decided what looked best in my little window. You can see this football player, his football is in motion. It is completely blurry. This is like a float in a parade or something, and it's super blurry. But what I really like are this group of kids. I just thrifted this, gosh, I think it was probably in the video I just posted of Thrifty Thursday. But they are kind of blurry. A bunch of the other photos were more crisp than this, but I can totally see them peeking through one of the windows. So that's going to be like my main something blurry. Then repeating shape. I think I'm going to use the embroidery floss to do some French knots on some fabric. I've got several different fabrics in addition to, fabrics here that have all been thrifted. That I'm going to do some French knots and just repeat those. That is a shape, I suppose, as it's stitch shape. But also the window panes. Those are rectangles and they repeat. So, yeah, so I think that's all 3 of them. As you can see, I've also got a key in here I'm possibly going to alter to put in one of these panes. I have the parts, these like rectangles that I cut out from here, that I can use to back things to put it in there. And then this fits in this box. Now I'm going to tell you, I don't know that I'm going to finish the whole box in this video. My big goal is to finish this portion. The box may not, you know, altering the inside, the edges. I also kind of want to put a hole in the box and add some like little LED lights to light up the window. So that, like I said, may not happen in this video because I've got 8 window panes here that I want to add things into. So I'm going to get started on this. I'm going to start by, I guess, altering my window with some paint. I think I'm going to paint it black and then maybe accent it somehow. So let's go. I hate to say it, guys, but this project was indeed the monster of a project that I thought it was going to be. So I have clipped it down as much as I can so that you can still see what I do without it being super long. It's already super long. So I gessoed with some black gesso the whole frame because I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to put on there, but then I decided let me go ahead and just put some black craft paint on there. So from there I did paint that with the black acrylic craft paint. So while I put it aside, I decided to start on some of the elements I knew I was going to put in the window pane. So I had this, y'all, I don't know, it was in the linen section at the thrift something, and I really wanted some kind of see-through fabric because, like I said, I wanted to put the window inside a box that lit up. So all of the elements I'm going to be adding to this are translucent in some way. So I thought maybe I'd put my French knots on this, but then I realized you would see all of the thread going around this as transparent as this one is. So I decided I could hide my thread behind the button. So I'm going to put the button on this more transparent fabric, whatever this is, some kind of chiffon tulle something. And I put some of that embroidery floss because it's green, it matches, rather than pulling something else out. Put that on a needle, and I'm putting several stitches on there, and I made sure my knot was like kind of hidden back there, and then I needed to tie it off. So I'm going to take it, I put it in the embroidery hoop just to make it easier to work on. I've got these tiny ones that my friend Nina Fickett gifted me, oh gosh, last year sometime. I guess maybe when I was doing my iCads last year when I did all the stitching. I think that's when she sent them to me. So I'm tying this off as best I can behind this button. Like I said, I don't really want a lot of the thread showing, but unfortunately it is going to show a bit in this next one. So I took the liner from that eyelet skirt I kind of showed you. I thought maybe I'd use the eyelet, but it just wasn't exactly what I wanted. So I traced one of the squares or the rectangles onto that fabric inside my little hoop again. And I'm going to make French knots. I'm going to do 12 French knots. So, you know, arranged in rows and columns of 3 and 4. So 3 across, 4 down. And that is going to be my repeating shape. So I'm making these French knots. I mention them all the time. To make them, I go up through the fabric. I wrap, I was trying to line it up. I wrap the thread around my needle twice there, and I go back in the fabric in a slightly different spot and pull through. And that's a French knot. So I'm going to skip ahead on this because you don't need to watch me do the same thing over and over again. Once I got them all made, and I did have to change out my thread halfway through. So I kind of made sure, because again, this is kind of translucent fabric, and when I put a light behind it, you'll see it. You can see I kind of made like a pattern-ish in the background, so it's not as weird, I guess. So to tie it off and keep that thread kind of small, I'm separating the threads of the embroidery floss and making a double knot with it, and then trimming it super close. And then I will take it off of my little embroidery hoop I go to the next thing. So I have a piece of acetate there and a couple of alcohol inks, I believe. Oh, what did I have? Raspberry, coral, and meadow, I think are the three colors. I'm putting them on one of those little felt ink blending tools. And what I'm trying to do is make what looks like flowers, just like a bunch of flowers on here. So I'm stamping it all over there. This took me a while. Again, I'm gonna edit this down a little bit, but it was a lot of adding a little more of this and a little more of that and stamping it some more, and the green was really getting lost in this. So those pinks just kind of muddied up and ate up, they're across from each other kind of in the color wheel. So the green wasn't working. I'm going to try to put it back on here, and it gets ate up. So what I end up doing, you'll see it here in a second, I'm going to skip ahead, is that I end up flipping over the acetate. Here I'm like, well, what if I did it on the back? So I flip over the acetate, and I'm going to put some of that green on there, and it still doesn't really, well, first off, I'm using the same dang piece of felt, and yeah, it's still got all that pink on it. So I'm gonna try just putting it on there, and it gets a little bit on there, but it really, I don't know, it's not as green as I want it to be. So you'll see how I fix that. I don't know if it's next or in a little bit I figure out a different way to do it. So from there, I decided to work with the Distress Oxide in Rustic Wilderness and my little stamp, and I'm putting it on some deli paper. Deli paper is really going to play a huge part in this because it is a translucent material. I could have used tracing paper or I'm going to try like a tissue paper, strong tissue paper or something. But I stamped that Distress Oxide on there, and you can see I'm blurring out the outside edges of that, and I let it dry. And then here's where I pull in another piece of that deli paper, and I'm putting that alcohol on there. So that green alcohol ink on there, spreading it out. I'm also going to add a couple of splatters so you can start to see that green through there a little bit more. I think the matte, the more translucentness of the deli paper really helps as well to kind of maintain it. So I'm going to add a couple darker splatters just for like some like closer up leaves, and I put that aside. And then I go to altering my key. I come back and forth with this key throughout the project. This is a resin key from a mold from Finnebear, and it just happened to be in my stash already made. So I'm starting by adding some more black gesso to this just as a base. And then moving on to other things, I took, this is some old thin typing paper. So if you have like onion skin paper or old typing paper or something like that, that's another great translucent material to try. And I typed the word joy over and over and over and over again because I think having those little kids in there, I don't know, there's something about the joyhood of being a kid. I also took that same paper and typed, just so it lined up within the keyhole, the word hope. I hardly ever use my name in things, but I kind of wanted something peeking through that keyhole, and I thought hope would be kind of a fun thing to do. So on the back of that keyhole, I'm putting some fluid matte medium and spreading it out. At some point I will move my camera down because I realize that it is not positioned well for the bottom of my desk. But I just positioned that, like the open space of that keyhole, over the word hope. Unfortunately, I typed it too high, so I'm gonna have to add another little snippet of that tissue paper to the top of it. So yeah, to cover that up, just so that when I put it in the window, there's not a gap. So covered that up, and I'm going to leave it to dry as well. Y'all, this was a lot of fiddling and arranging, and should I admit to you now, this is not my favorite project. I told y'all going in that I was nervous about it, and I think that kind of came through in this. I did trace the keyhole with my gold Uniball Signo pen just to echo the gold that I'm about to put on this key, because I wanted the keyhole and the key to both have a unifying factor, I suppose. So I put this Modern Masters Olympic gold paint on the key. I'm going to alter this key so many ways along with that keyhole. It's not even funny. I don't know why it bothered me so much. Then I decided, okay, well, let's add a little bit of gold to my frame, to my window as well. And I don't know. I put the gold on, and what I really wanted was a metallic on here, because I wanted this to feel kind of like stained glass, like a stained glass window, which honestly, it's got lead solder on it, which is more of a gunmetal or silver color. So I ended up coming in with some water and kind of wiping off as much of that gold as I could. Some of the gold still kind of showed through, which is fine. It still has that metallicness I was trying to get, but yeah. So I'm adding water there and using a towel to just wipe off some of what I can get off. It pretty much, and that towel's so gross that it really was just kind of sanding it more than anything. So I came back instead with this. What's it called? It's a Liquitex. It's graphite shimmer or something like that. I'll put that information below in the description box for you. And I'm rubbing it on with my finger just a little bit. I'm not trying to cover the whole thing. I just wanted touches of that metallic feel to this, because like I said, I wanted it to feel like stained glass leaded window to some respect, but I'm going to do some other things that's going to absolutely take that away. I was so indecisive on this project. Y'all, it's not my favorite of these four. I really felt the pressure with this one, and I don't know why. I think I had too many options here. So when that Liquitex paint had dried, I decided to add some distressed Crackle Paste. So this is the opaque white Crackle Paste. I'm using a palette knife to just kind of spread it kind of willy-nilly around on the frame of this window, or the panes. What do you call that? It is the frame, isn't it? Yeah, it's a window frame, I suppose. So yeah, I'm going to spread that around, and as I do it, I realize, I also have some translucent Crackle Paste. I should add that too. So I am going, there we go, to pull it out and use that same palette knife to lightly add it. And the places where I'm adding it are just like off of where the white crackle is. So it's just like it fades from the white into the translucent. And I don't know why I did that. My problem when this is finished is that translucent is super shiny, and I don't know how to fix that. I could try some matte medium over it, but I'm concerned that'll take the crackle away. So yeah, I'm going to have to think on this. This project in the end is just, like I said before, going to be the frame itself, and I have lots of ideas of things I could add to it. But first I have to decide if I actually like this frame when I'm done, if it's worth trying to add those things, or if I want to maybe do another one. This was a really experimental project for me, and I am glad that I tried a bunch of different things and experimented and played and gave myself that time to process what I wanted to put in each of these windows, or each of these panes. So now I've decided that the gold was too much, and I just wanted a smattering of dark on it. So for some reason I went for the Rub and Buff instead of going back to the Gesso. I don't know. Like I said, this was a lot of play and experimentation. So this is Rub and Buff in Ebony, and I'm trying to dry brush it on, but y'all look, I basically turned that whole thing black. Well, I don't know what I was thinking. I'm playing, I'm experimenting, I'm trying to figure out what it is I like to make. So here I come with more of that gold, and I'm kind of basically just painting it on again, but kind of dry brushing it. It's a whole thing. I love to dry brush and accent things. This is but this little key is super tiny, and I'm gonna tell you a secret. The keyholes that I use on this and that key don't match. There's no way that this key would unlock the keyholes that I've got going on in this, because yeah, and maybe that's one of those things that just bothers me as well. So I've pulled in some Americana craft paint in sea glass, y'all. It's my favorite thing to put a little bit on there to add like a patina to this. And I kept thinking about adding moss in some of these frames, and that's one of those things I may add later if I do use this, or if I do another one, or little bits of moss in each of these along with the crackle. So I went ahead and added a little bit of green, what is this called? Green Oxide to the key to give it that kind of mossy feel. All right, and the white crackle there was driving me crazy, so I tried to darken it up first with this Distress Stain. I think it's hickory smoke. Sorry, my crazy hair is getting all in there, but that wasn't working super great. So instead, I grab my what's it called? Transparent raw umber ink. This is from Liquitex, and you can see I'm just kind of getting it on that paintbrush. Oh, and I also put it on the key to push back the bright gold. I wanted everything about this to feel a little aged. So yeah, I pushed back the gold, and then I was like, oh yeah, I can use that as well to push back this super bright crackle. That my hair, I was right over my desk. I don't know what was going on there. But you can see I'm just putting like a little dab of that on the crackle and smearing it out with my finger. I definitely use my fingers a lot when I create. Probably shouldn't. I should probably find some gloves that fit and do that. So here is that bit of, what did I say it was? Deli paper with the alcohol ink on it. And so I put matte gel medium on that. I'm trying to make sure I put it on one of those sides, the side with more alcohol ink in it to kind of protect it. And I put it down and I'm smearing it out, and you can see some of that alcohol ink reactivated somehow, but it's fine. It was just a little bit of it. I let that dry, and then I'm using one of the rectangles, or the rectangle that fits into the pane that I'm going to put this in, and held it in place while I cut around it. Now I did leave some space around the outside while because I needed some way for this to grab on. And I'm using glossy accents because it's one of those things that I know sticks to acetate, and I end up using it for most of these because it was working. It's got a great fine tip on it, so yeah. So I did glue down that bit of the acetate with the alcohol ink, and then I'm going to do something similar here with my French knot fabric. Now I'm going to tell you, I did have all of those window panes numbered just in case the image I used had different sizes of those window panes. I didn't check them when I cut it. Well, when I was in Lightburn, which is the program, the software I use for the laser cutting. So, I didn't check to make sure they were all exactly the same size. So I made sure I numbered each of those wood pieces because they were the right size. So, this piece gets a little fiddly because I want it to be super tight. So I'm going to put just a little bit of that glossy accent down and try to figure out which way is supposed to be up and left and right. And yeah, look at me, I'm like, this is which way? And I wanted to make sure that it wasn't like cattywampus, I guess is the best way, like tilted. So I put down that one side that's over by the acetate, let it dry for a second, and then I put some more of the glossy accents on the top and the bottom, and I'm going to do my best to stretch that fabric so it's taut. That was my goal here. I wanted it taut and not kind of saggy. I just felt like that would be super sad if it was saggy. So I go back and forth adding the glossy accents on here. and get it secured down. And then there was a little bit of excess that I tried to trim off, and it was fiddly. And what I realized as I was doing this is I could have just folded it over and glued that excess down rather than say I thought about it there, and rather than trying to trim it all fiddly like. And so in anywhere, yeah, that last side, here I'm trying to pull it as tight as I can and hold it, and y'all, I got so much glossy accents on my finger. Yeah, I had to go run it. You can see I keep rubbing my fingers trying to get it off. So I took that photo and printed it on some more of the deli paper. I did that by taping a piece of deli paper to a piece of regular copy paper using masking tape and running through my my printer, basically my copier. And so that printed right onto the deli paper, and yeah, and so that makes this picture translucent. I thought of a couple other things, like I could have done an image transfer or something like that, but then I was like, I have a printer, a copier, I can just do that. So yeah, I cut it down to size, and again, I'm using the glossy accents. This time I'm just going to go ahead and put it straight on the whole thing. You see, I almost did it backwards. Fortunately, I caught myself. And then glued it down. So the next piece is going to be that keyhole that I stamped and added the word hope behind. Now that it's dry, it's kind of great. So I did find the little wood piece that matches that, cutting around it again, leaving a little bit of almost like a seam allowance, I guess is what it would be, so that it has room to stick to behind that frame, to the edges there. And I'm looking at it, and y'all, I was not loving that piece. Even though it's got my name on it, even though it's one of my own hand carved stamps, I was not, it felt cheap. It felt, so once I put it down, I was like, I've got to do something. So I had to move some things around and figure out what I wanted, which meant I had another open window from what I had originally planned. So you can see I've kind of got none of that. Bottom 4 are glued for the most part. The top 4 I had to think about for a little bit and move things around off camera. So I'm cutting down another piece of deli paper to fit that upper right, I don't know, what shape would you call that? I don't know, that angled window shape. And I am going to go ahead and glue that down blank, but you can see I pulled out a bunch of beads. So what I have decided to do is to make like a stained glass window pane, kind of like the one I did with the alcohol ink, but instead do it with beads and UV resin. So, but I needed something first to back that. I suppose I could have used more of the acetate, but yeah, it's fine with this. This is an easier solution. I suppose it glues a lot easier. So I'm going to put down a layer of the UV resin inside that frame and move it around, make sure it fills all those spaces in there. And then I will add beads into it. So I'm going to drop, I've got some purpley pink beads, like fuchsia colored beads, and some coral colored ones and some green ones. So basically the same kind of colors that I did the alcohol inks with. And I'm trying to not put too many, because again, I kind of wanted this to feel a bit like flowers, or, viewing the garden from outside. I do wish I'd put more of the colored ones in there than I ended up putting in there, but it's okay. This was all experiment, and this may be one of the sections of this I'm still not sure about, because you can absolutely still tell that these are beads. I did consider, in part of the UV resining process, I did consider adding some alcohol ink to it, but I was like, no, it's gonna just end up looking like the one that's 3 panes below it, and I don't want that. I don't want it to look exactly like that. So here is me trying to fill in some of the blank spaces with white beads, clear beads, which is kind of silly, because
it's going to be clear anyway. Yeah. So I'm getting as many, and they were all over my desk, y'all. I'm trying to pick up some of the ones that are on my desk. And yeah, fill that in. I took it, let it sit under my UV light until it was cured, and then I'm going to add another layer of UV resin over the top of it, spread it out. This was kind of fiddly, and I could probably have another layer because there's portions of it that are not as filled in as I would like. But I have to remember that the beads have holes in them, which gives them like a lumpy bumpiness. And yeah, it's okay. It's fine. It was an experiment. This is one of those things that I tried. It kind of worked, and I'm glad I did. I'm trying to remember to go ahead and try those things, to experiment, to not make everything so precious. If you saw my Not Precious project, and I'm still sharing those, if you want to check those out. I learned that I need to not make everything so precious because I'll never learn how I feel about things. So I did cure that UV resin piece, and since that other keyhole I had was feeling so cheap, I decided I needed to add something that didn't feel as cheap. So I've got this Tim Holtz keyhole here, but it's got more of a silvery gunmetal color. So I'm adding some antique gold rub and buff to the raised edges using my finger, just so, again, because I wanted that gold color for the keyhole. So, and I knew that fit over my hope there. Okay, so there is that cured. And now I'm going to start trying to assemble some of these things. So there's my paper, my typing paper with Joy written on it. I was looking for the piece that fit in there, or at least one of the pieces. And I'm going again to cut it out with seam allowance. And I'll use the glossy accents to glue it. Now, I don't know if you can, I'm sure you can see that flower, the watercolor flower thing that's sitting above it. That is something I did off camera, like the day before I did this, knowing that it would make a neat element. But I wanted to experiment to see if I could watercolor on deli paper. So I tried deli paper and tracing paper, and the deli paper worked out a bit better than the tracing paper did. So I did watercolor this the day before, kind of knowing that I wanted to use those fuchsia and corally colors as part of this to go with the green. So I've got my Joy thing trimmed down, and now I'm trimming it down, the fabric on this button. And then it hit me that what I could really do is just put the glossy accents on the back of my frame, of my window frame, and then position it over the top of this fabric and then glue it down. But what I forgot to take into account was the fact that I wanted this to be taut. So, oh, y'all, this was all very much a lesson learned. And that's kind of the point of failing, right? And I don't know that I considered this frame a complete fail, but I also don't consider it a complete success. So it definitely, and I'm really glad that the way I did this, some of the elements that I really do like, I can take out of here. I can cut that button off. I can pull out that keyhole. I can pull out the key. I can, if I wanted to start over with some of these elements, I can, because they're not super permanent on here. It's going to be a bit fiddly to get them apart, but it's doable. So then I decided to do the same kind of thing with the watercolored flowers. I put the glossy accents down and then put it over the area that I wanted and glued that down, and then I will trim off the excess. Now, in doing this, I punched the tiniest hole with the tip of my glossy accents in my Joy paper, which made me realize that any of these papers that are on there can be pretty, if I had these on display at the gallery and some kid came through, they could, oh, what's that game on The Price is Right where you punch through and pull out prices? You know what I'm talking about? But anyway, they could punch through these pretty easy. So I knew I needed to back it with something that will stabilize these papers so they can't be just poked through. So I'll get to that in a minute, but first it's time to add some of these 3D elements. I am again using the glossy accents. I could have used my E6000 or Fabri-Tac, but why not just keep going with the glossy accents? I'm going to add that to the resin piece as well as to my keyhole that I have altered and stick that down. And y'all, we're coming to the end of this. And so what I'm going to do to protect the back is take another piece of acetate, and I'm only going to cover the top 6 pieces because those are the ones that can be easily punched through. The bottom 2, yeah, they're not paper. So I'm going to cut down that acetate to about the right width. I'm not worried about the arches at the top yet. So, and again, I'll use glossy accents because I do know that it sticks to acetate. And y'all, when I did this, I almost punched through, I think I may have punched through that Joy one again, which is exactly why, see there, oh my gosh, I was so mad at myself. Which is exactly why I need to do it. Now, I did have a little bit of a lump where that knot is on the button, but it's okay. It's fine. And I'm going to give you a quick look of how this is going to or would look in my box with some lights, some little battery operated lights that I had in my stash. But yeah, I'm going to give you a quick look at that. And like I said, I may end up putting this in the box later. I don't know. I'm still thinking on it. I'd love to know what you think of this. Is it worthy of being mounted in that box, of me going to the trouble of cutting down that box and finding a way to mount this in there? Or yeah, let me know what you think. I hope you are happy with how I use these 3 prompts. If you have any other ideas of how those prompts could be used, or if you've played along in some way, let me know. If you have any questions, let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts and questions and all of that. If you did like this, please give me a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe, and I will see y'all later with definitely more art and craftiness. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.